In this video, we will cover 3 different ways to pull research into your papers without plagiarizing the original author. So of course you should be familiar already with quoting. You're actually taking a direct short sentence or passage from the original text, including it within quotation marks, and including an in-text citation and a citation on your works cited page. Paraphrasing involves taking a section of text but restating it in your own words. You change the text and maybe shorten it, but it keeps the original meaning. When you paraphrase, you also need to give credit to the original author by including an in-text citation and using MLA formatting. Summarizing is a little bit different because you're actually looking at a much larger document and pulling the main ideas and findings in your own words. It's usually much shorter, but it presents a general overview to what you're writing about. Summarizing also requires you to include an in-text citation and also a entry on your works cited page. So we're going to look at quoting really briefly because I think you've done this enough times that you have a general idea what you're doing with this. So direct quotes go inside quotation marks. Now this is an APA example, but if it were MLA, you'd have the author's name or the title and a page if necessary. When do you use a quote? If the original author says it in a way that you can't say it better, that's usually a good indication you should use a quote. For instance, if you're doing paper 2 and you're doing a movie or a TV show interview with a director or an actor, and they've said something about the way they acted in the movie or why they directed a certain way, you would generally want to quote them directly rather than paraphrasing it. Alright, so just a word about overquoting. It's probably not going to be a huge issue in your undergraduate classes, but if you're getting to the point where you're pulling in, 25% of the paper or 33% of the paper is becoming direct quotes, that probably means you need to do a little bit more analysis and pull in some more of your own ideas or do some paraphrasing. So paraphrasing is when you use your own words to express someone else's idea. You are retaining the main idea, but you're doing it in a way that's either shorter, more concise, or ties in with your subject a little bit more directly. So let's look really quickly at an original paragraph from a book by Nancy Wallach, Women in the American Experience, A Concise History. So let me read this. The feminization of clerical work and teaching by the turn of the century reflected the growth of business and public education. It also reflected limited opportunities elsewhere. Throughout the 19th century, stereotyping of work by sex had restricted women's employment. Job options were limited. Any field that admitted women attracted a surplus of applicants willing to work for less pay than men would have received. The entry of women into such fields, whether grammar school teaching or office work, drove down wages. So you want to pull in the idea from that. So in a paraphrase version, and this is using APA rather than MLA formatting, but it says according to Nancy Wallach, so you're giving the author attribution, and you mention the publication, Women and the American Experience, A Concise History. The feminization of jobs in the 19th century had 2 major effects: a lack of employment opportunities for women, and inadequate compensation for positions that were available. Thus, while clerical and teaching jobs indicated a boom in these sectors, women were forced to apply for jobs that would pay them less than male workers were paid, and they also indicate the page number. So notice in this they pulled in the big ideas that came from that paragraph above, but they stated a little bit more concisely. I think that it probably could actually be shortened further, but it still pulls in the same ideas. And notice there was nothing that outstanding about the original paragraph that you really needed to quote it directly. So it also adds support to claims in your writing, but it also shows the professor that you've actually thought about the work and why you're including it. But make sure you do, before you paraphrase, understand the text fully and what the author's intent is in writing. So now we move on to summarizing. Summarizing is when you're reading something particularly long and you want to pull some main ideas out of it, but it's just too long to quote or paraphrase. And sometimes only the main ideas are relevant to your paper. To use an example, suppose you want to talk about a law that has been passed, but is numerous pages in length and is full of legalese and stuff that only attorneys would want to read. You might want to just write a short paragraph that highlights what the law covers, like the Equal Right Amendment or anything like that, and include it in your paper. But you do want to make sure when you summarize that you are also including an in-text citation and including it on your works cited page, because you are utilizing someone else's idea or content. So hopefully this gives you a good overview of when you might want to use quotes, paraphrases, or summarize something, and to make sure that you're attributing them appropriately to the original author or source.